I don't even know why I'm bothering to do this video. I'll be quite honest with you. With only 3 subscribers, 2 of them being me and my one of my daughters really having only 1 subscriber, it's really no use in me doing this. So I'm only going to be, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm only going to be talking to myself actually, and I really don't give a fuck. Excuse my language, I'm a little abrasive with words. Okay, 2:20 a.m., can't sleep. I have agoraphobia, panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, and PTSD, and I'm going through grief on top of it all by the loss of my mother. Okay, so what am I doing right now? I was thinking, like tomorrow is my weekly phone session with my therapist, and I've had about maybe 10 phone sessions with her, and I have not gotten even maybe 10% better since any of my phone sessions with her. It actually turns into, hi, how are you? How is your week? And she'll listen to me speak. And once in a while, she'll throw in oh, I see. That sounds very painful. Or, oh, I see. That sounds very hard. And then she'll have me punch something in on the computer. Let's look up some kind of, like a I call it copiary, some kind of coping type of method where she'll find a free sheet for me to look at, like I call it like a worksheet on a free one, by the way, on psychologytoday.com, or I don't know, some place where she finds it on the internet. I'll look at it. It'll be like, whenever you feel anxious, just take some deep breaths and think positive thoughts. Whenever you're feeling this way, just think, I can do it. And, bullshit like that. Well, that doesn't help me. And the problem is with therapy is sometimes you want to be the therapist's pet, if you know what I mean. You want to be, likable to your therapist. You want your therapist to like you, almost like you're in school and you want the teacher to like you. You follow what I'm saying? You don't want to cause any problems. You don't want to question the therapist because you feel like you're almost challenging an authority figure. So if I might turn around and say, look, we've had 10 sessions already. I'm not feeling better. Anything you're telling me to do or anything you're suggesting is really not helping me. I'm afraid to do that because what if she drops me? I've already gotten dropped by the previous therapist to her for the first time actually in my 20-something years of going and having therapy sessions with a multitude of different kinds of therapists, from psychoanalysts to Freudian type of therapists to therapists that follow Carl Jung. And I had CBT, I had DBT, I had, multiple different types of therapy. And so my last therapist, after I got dropped after 3 sessions, which that's never happened to me before, I'm a little bit paranoid about getting dropped again. So if I start to question my therapist and say, hey, look, what are we doing here? If we're talking for 45 minutes and all you do is just listen to me, you never really give me much input except for to say, that must be quite painful. That must be really hard. That doesn't help me. And when you tell me to breathe deep and take deep, soothing breaths, that doesn't help me either. And when you tell me to possibly meditate or to plunge my face into a bowl of ice water when I'm having a panic attack, that doesn't help either. So what does somebody like me do? Well, we feel pretty hopeless because we feel like the effectiveness of the therapy is not there. And who else can help me? Especially since I have low-paying insurance, which will only pay each therapist that I possibly can find. By the way, it took me 8 months to find this one because no therapist on my provider for the health insurance list would actually take my case on because they said they were all filled up. Well, that's a lot of bullshit, to be quite honest, because a lot of therapists will listen to you when you say to them, when you call them up and say, I'm looking for a therapist. Here's this, and this problem I'm having. A lot of them will say right away, oh, is this person worth $35 a session for me to go and deal with? And 90% of the chance is if you have an easy case, they'll take it on for $35 for 45 minutes. But if you have a case that's a little bit more problematic to them, they will tell you their practice is filled up. So for 8 months, it took me to get this lady. Now, the person before her, I chose a psychologist. Now, there's many, many, many different types of therapists that can help you. There's social workers, there's counselors, there's life coaches. Well, they're not even actually a professional provider with a license, but you know what I mean. There's psychoanalysts, there's psychologists, there's Freudian type of methods, there's Jungian type of methods, there's EDMR, there's all sorts of things. And it's very confusing. Who do you choose? Well, I'll be honest with you. I've chosen every single one of those people that I mentioned, except for EDMR. Never tried that one yet. I heard that's quite difficult for people with trauma situations. Although it's supposed to help you with trauma, it may bring out more trauma. I don't need that right now. So what's going on with me right now? Panic disorder? Yes. Anxiety around the clock? Yes. Social anxiety? Yes. PTSD? Flashbacks? Yes. Dealing with the death of my mother, who I adored? Yes. So what situation is my worst problem besides the anxiety and panic attacks and PTSD, flashbacks, and grief? Agoraphobia. See, here you go. It's pronounced agoraphobia, and let me tell you, it sounds like one hell of a disease, doesn't it? It sounds awful. So here's all different definitions for it. It's an anxiety disorder that develops after one or more panic attacks. Symptoms include fear and avoidance of places and situations that might cause feelings of panic, entrapment, helplessness, or embarrassment. Yes, 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 and yes, and yes. Treatments include talk therapy and medication. Okay, tried that. Now, one medication that has been extremely helpful to me over the past 28 years maybe, has been Xanax. But now no doctor wants to give Xanax anymore due to the opioid crisis in America, with people snorting oxycodone and Xanax up their nose and killing themselves. So somebody like me, who is highly benefited by a small, low dose of Xanax, the same dose I might add, for the past 28 years, has now been giving pretty much the FU. And no, we do not prescribe it for long-term treatment of anxiety disorders anymore. Well, after 3 years of not being on it and suffering the most worst withdrawal symptoms, turning into a full-blown agoraphobic again, not leaving the house barely ever, unless there's an emergency. Pretty much I got it back finally, but it's too late. It's too late. I was doing great when I was on it and working, driving, doing normal everyday things. But once my doctor of 22 years retired and no other doctor would prescribe it to me, and it took me 3 years to find someone that had a heart that would prescribe a low dose to me again, it is just not working anymore at the rate that it used to work for the past 20-something years. So that same dose now is not enough. Why? Because my anxiety and all the symptoms actually have increased by getting barely any help from the mental wellness community out there. So excuse me a moment. What happens if you have really bad agoraphobia? Well, I will tell you one thing. You don't leave the house, or you try not to leave the house. Now, you can be a functioning agoraphobic. What is that? That is somebody that has no fucking choice, but has to go out and have a job in order to keep a roof over their head. Otherwise, they'll be homeless. Now, some agoraphobics are so bad that they can't even function and end up homeless or in low cost, really bad housing situations where they're in poor neighborhoods because they can't actually bring home the bacon, if you know what I mean. Now, most people with anxiety disorders are highly intelligent. It's a known fact that most of us have higher than normal IQs. Why do we end up in the situation, though, where we end up not being able to earn enough money to live a better life? It's because of these disorders. These disorders hold us back. So the problem is with agoraphobia is people give up on you. So people that are in your life They could be in your life your whole life, or people you've met maybe a few years ago, friends, family, what have you, ends up giving up on you. When they say, hey, on Tuesday, do you want to come to so-and-so's birthday party? We're having a really big thing. And you're like, immediately, oh no. You say, to yourself, fuck, I don't want to go. Oh my God, there's going to be like 100 people there. I can't deal with this. So a lot of times we'll make little excuses. Like we'll say yes to shut the person up and get them off our back. And then the day of the party, we might suddenly come down with the flu, or we have diarrhea, or we have an upset stomach or a headache and we don't feel good. And then after a while, people just get tired of asking us to go to parties, go places with them, maybe even go out to dinner with them, go to the movies. And after a while, your friend list and family actually starts to abandon you. And so your friend list gets smaller and smaller. Your life becomes lonelier and lonelier. And what I noticed is that I used to sort of lie to myself. I used to say, I hate people. I can't stand people. They drain me. Whenever I'm with somebody, I feel like they're draining the life out of me, and I need to get away from them in order to recharge my batteries. But the truth is I really don't hate people, and I'm really painfully lonely. But most people don't understand that when you're out, say they get you to go out, and say you're at a coffee shop with them. Sometimes you feel like you have to flee. You have to get out of there as soon as possible, and you have to get home because the anxiety is really starting to ramp up. And you can't just sit there, say you're sipping a cup of coffee and hanging out with somebody. You can't just sit there and say, well, I got to go right now. I'm having really bad anxiety. Later, and then just run out of the coffee shop. Most people will think you're batshit crazy. So that's where the situation of agoraphobia makes it where most of us are very lonely. I'm not going to lie. I have days that are so bad. Since I only have therapy once a week, which I've actually requested 2 to 3 sessions a week. My therapist tells me she's too busy for that. I just talk to my therapist not because she makes me feel better, but because nobody ever calls me. My phone never rings. I lost all my friends, and I have nobody except for my kids and my husband who are not interested in me. A lot of people, you'll notice, will not want to hang around you if you have agoraphobia and bad anxiety. Pretty much you're a doomer and a gloomer. And most people don't want to hang around with doomers and gloomers and people that are like habitually worried. So you end up with no friends and sitting in your house day after day, night after night, with absolutely nothing to do but to look at YouTube videos. And after a while, that even gets really boring. And maybe doing a little hobby or two pretty much becomes a jail sentence. So what does it say here for agoraphobia? It says treatment can help, but this condition can't be cured. And that is absolutely true. There's been pockets in my life where I had zero agoraphobia. It was always in the background where I felt it could happen at any moment, but I was able to function and able to go places and do things. Not very comfortably, I might add. I had a lot of issues with it where I was feeling anxiety, but I did it anyway. And then boom, my anxiety situation would get much worse. Panic attacks, ramping up and amping up. And then I couldn't even leave anymore. And it would turn into a chronic thing where 1 month would pass without me leaving. 3 months without me leaving the house. 5 months without me leaving the house, until the hole gets bigger and bigger and bigger and worse and worse and worse, where it becomes much more harder to put your shoes on and go out the door without feeling intense fear and fright. Now, when I talk to my therapist about that, she says, well, just do it anyway. Just put your shoes on and go out. Put the dogs on the leash and take a walk. And I try to explain to her, that's not as easy as it sounds. Like to you, snapping a leash on your dog and going for a walk around the neighborhood sounds non-threatening. But for someone who has a panic attack issue, where it can arise at any moment out of the blue, and it's like a seizure. You cannot predict when a seizure is going to happen. That is quite scary. What if I'm 4 blocks away from my house with my dogs and I have a panic attack? How am I going to get back home really fast without someone calling an ambulance on me as I'm gasping for air, looking like I'm having a heart attack in public? So that's why it's such a hard issue for people like us. So I want to know in the comments below, how is your agoraphobia in your daily life? Like, what is it like for you? Do you feel lonely? And do you actually crave companionship and friends? Do you actually feel like all alone and like nobody understands you? I just want to know about what you're going through. Okay, so here's what it says. Basically, by the way, they try to do I think it's desensitization type of exercises. A therapist can take you to the mall, can take you into crowded areas where they work with you little by little to get you integrated back into things where less and less fear is felt every single time you try a little bit more. But there are no therapists that want to do that for $35 a session with my shitty health insurance. If you have $275 to pay somebody per session for 45 minutes, I'm sure you could find someone that will show up at your house and help you. But when you're in a low budget type of how can I explain, situation where you don't have a lot of money in your purse to pay these experts, you're pretty much screwed. And that is the problem with this country. And like my mother had said when she was alive, she did medical billing for a business. She said, Deanna, most of these doctors, it's a business to them. And I said, Mom, a business? Don't they care? She said, no. She said, unfortunately, you're just a customer. And they look at this as a business. They went through medical school or, psychology classes in the major universities. They have $100,000 in like student loans, and they have to make as much money as they can. It's a business. And you got to understand it. And I understand capitalism. I'm a capitalist myself. I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. I don't believe in universal health care because somebody ends up paying for it. Hardworking people end up having to pay for it. And it's not fair to everybody that they have to fund my mental illness out of their pocket, out of their hard work. It's going to be taxed out of their paycheck. And so in a way, I sort of understand that. But at the same time, I feel like I don't understand that. You know what I mean? Where is the help for people like us out there? There is none if you don't have any money. So if you have shitty paying insurance or none at all, you are going to be sitting as a prisoner in your home, staring at the four walls without anybody who really gives a shit unless you're worth their while financially. And so my therapist is a $35 an hour therapist, and she rushes me off the phone all the time. Oh, our time is up. And within not even 1 minute to the time the session should end, that's what she always screeches out. And I feel like I'm a waste of her time, to be quite honest, because she really doesn't do any exercises with me to help me get better. So what can we do? I think there's strength in numbers. I'd really love to get an organization going, funded, by other people because I don't have the money, but something that can help people with anxiety disorders, especially agoraphobia as well, panic disorder, PTSD, and anxiety disorder. To get a group, if you had a group of people that felt the same way you did, say you feel like intense social fear, social anxiety around others, you're agoraphobic, you're nervous, you're afraid to go places. If you had a bunch of these people as a group doing things with you, and taking on these challenges with you, you would feel much more secure around people that understood you and were like-minded. I wish we can get something going, something like this going in every single neighborhood and every single town across the USA, to get a bunch of people that can just actually support each other. Also, a 24-hour helpline for people feeling really bad anxiety, panic attacks, feelings of loneliness, besides having to call the suicide hotline. That's been one bit of contention like a bit of contention for me, having the call sometimes when I'm having a bad panic attack, the suicide hotline. It makes me even more anxious, because what if someone's trying to commit suicide, is trying to call that line, and I'm wasting resources? And I'll be honest with you, talking to the people on the suicide hotline is actually quite healing. Talking to people that really give a shit about you, as opposed to my own therapist who seems to rush me off the phone, barely listen to me, yawn in between each story I tell her, and then tell me I'm out of time. The people at the suicide hotline sound like they're much more invested in caring. And so if we had some kind of thing we can do as a collective that can help each other, this would be a really great thing. So what do you think? Is there a way to crowdfund source this to get a momentum going where we can all help each other and have someone helping us to fund this? Let me know in the comments below. I'm going to go right now. I'm done. It's 2:40 a.m. Still can't sleep, but I'm feeling mighty lonely, mighty alone, and mighty afraid at the same time. Thanks for listening to me, and I hope that you know that you're not alone. I'm in it with you. Thanks for listening.